Thank you, Brother Richard, for sitting down once again for Behind the Final Call cover story. This week, the date on the paper is January 7th, 2020, volume number 39, number 13. Cover story of the paper is The Case for Separation. As I always ask, why this cover story?
Well, first of all, Alaikum Salam, Detroit, thank you again. I think there's probably no story that is more important for us to discuss than the case for separation. We know, of course, that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the patriarch of the Nation of Islam, called for us to be separate from Caucasian people in a separate state or territory as a way to resolve America's race problem. And while many people have rejected and objected to that idea, for nearly 2 years now, Student Minister Ava Muhammad has been touring the country discussing this topic of separation. And I think that what we are finding is the more people know about what this thing of separation entails, and once we consider the problems that we keep having, the deaths of black folk at the hands of police officers, the continued failing education system, even the violence among ourselves that nobody seems to be able to get a hold on, and despite progress, on some levels, the continued fight either to maintain the progress, to stop regressive policies, to stop regressive politicians, to stop all of these things that challenge us so that we never seem to just get a break and to be able to enjoy life. So you don't have peace of mind and contentment because you're always in a battle with those that are trying to push you back from where you are that you had to fight to get to. So the other thing I think that's important when we talk about separation is that blacks are already separated, but it is in an inferior position called segregation. We live separate from whites when it comes to housing patterns. We literally don't watch the same TV shows researchers show. We don't necessarily like the same movies. But beyond those simple things is the reality that we are denied services, we are denied proper policing. Our education is underfunded and inferior. Even our access to food, where you have food deserts, and information with what's called now news deserts, right? These are all of what we suffer from under our present separated condition, which is under the condition of segregation. So when we talk about separation, you look at the idea or the example of a husband and wife who are married but who no longer love each other and cannot get along together in peace. What do? They separate and they eventually divorce. Why? Because reality is showing that this relationship just cannot last. So we're saying after over 430-something years of trying to exist and get along with Caucasian people, we are seeing right now, it is evident we cannot get along together with these people in peace. So what we wanted to do was to really lay out the case, and we do extensive coverage of Sister Ava and I guess 19 different town hall meetings, or 18 different meetings around the country, and her great representation and analysis of this subject. So, again, the other thing is she's going to kick off year 2 of her town hall meeting January 11th in Washington, D.C., and I think that's in connection with Muhammad Mosque number 4 in Washington, January 11th. So look for that. Go to her page, Google her, and be there. The other thing is Sister Ava will be leading a major plenary session February 22nd in Detroit during our annual Savior's Day condition. I mean, major session You want to be there, and it is open to the public. So we're inviting folks in Detroit to come. We're inviting folks from around the country to come to Savior's Day and enjoy a celebration. It shows, and a celebration and a weekend that will highlight black excellence and our ability to get along with one another when we know who we are and we don't have the enemy in between us.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I just saw one comment that popped up that expressed that in this year, those who are married, they say that they pray that they stay together. And of course, that's not the separation that we're talking about. We're not talking about the separation of husband and wife, because we know that
black people have already prayed to stay together for white folks. Well, not all the time, because even when we were granted freedom after the Civil War, there were those who wanted to separate, and there were whites who wanted us to separate, including people like Thomas Jefferson and including people like Abraham Lincoln. So let's not mix apples and oranges. We're talking about separating from those who have murdered, killed, slaughtered, and abused us. And I would suggest that if you're married to somebody that's trying to murder, slaughter, and abuse you, you don't need to get a separation. You need to get a damn divorce right away to save your own life. But when somebody is abused, then very often, because of the abuse over time, they will stay with the abuser and sometimes equate the abuse itself with love. So that's a very sick relationship as a result of someone really being, really just so overly mistreated that they suffer so badly because they've been driven to a point because there's been a lack of love, even if the person professed love. So if you're in any kind of abusive relationship, I don't give a damn what you call it, I suggest you get out of it in 2020.
Praise
and black folks certainly need to get out of this abusive relationship with white folk as soon as possible. And so separation, and you can read about it at finalcall.com and get good information. We're not necessarily talking about packing up and going somewhere. And the first thing that we need to do is consider or work on how do we make our existing communities safe and decent places to live. Because again, we already largely live in separated areas, racially segregated areas from Caucasian people. So I think it's time for us to understand and to begin to take control with a mindset. Not just that we will exist, or not just that we will follow the norm of political and social systems, but that we want to take over with the mindset of being fully in control and fully changing our community. So, of course, that takes money. Of course, it takes effort. It takes all of that. The beginning of that is knowledge, and that knowledge combined with our unity. You would be surprised at what you can accomplish. Other people are doing it across this country at this very moment. They are carving out enclaves for themselves and their children because they want to live a certain way, they believe a certain way, and they want what's best for them and their belief system, and their belief system does not threaten the well-being of this country.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And just as you mentioned, this paper discusses, as last week paper did as well, as we took an overlook of what many of the events that happened over the course of the year 2019. And as we're moving into 2020, there are some choices and challenges for 2020 that many of those are residue and residual of what happened in 2019 that further present a case on why we need to get a divorce, not from husband and wives who are trying to build and may have difficulties, but why we need to get a divorce from those enemies that we continue to want to be amongst. Can you talk a little bit about that order?
Well, I've got my column this week is called Choices and Challenges for 2020. And I guess my overall point is that whenever you enter a new year, there's generally a feeling of optimism. There's generally a feeling of, hey, I got a whole new year to decide what I'm going to do. So we wanted to just point out that as a people, we need to make some decisions. We need to make some choices. As a people, we suffer from very challenges that we need to meet and overcome. And so it is that time now. It is that time now for us to really step forward, to deal with violence in our community, to deal with sex trafficking, to deal with the violence on the negative side, but it's also to build on the positive side, to build on all of those people this year that stressed black economic development and black economic cooperation. All of the people that worked with young folks trying to stifle violence and trying to develop them. All of the black women that came together to support one another. So there are great things that we did that we need to continue to do and find ways to support one another. So these are among the challenges that we face, you know. So we're hoping again, that we will examine things. I hope that we didn't miss that the Attorney General, William Barr, announced initiatives in 7 cities to combat violent crime. These are cities where the averages are above the national averages when it comes to crime rates. And the cities that he named were Detroit, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Baltimore, Cleveland, Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, Memphis, and Milwaukee. So we have to ask them, is it really a good idea to have more law enforcement, more of these often abusive officers? Remember, this is the same Mr. Barr who said that if people in neighborhoods did not respect police officers, they may find themselves not being able to get police services. This is a man who serves under a president that said early in his administration to police officers, why are you being so gentle with folks when you arrest them? So there's a lot here that we need to look at. So we hope that we will really, really take some time to meditate, to think, not just party and all through the night and wake up tomorrow with a hangover and watch football. There's nothing wrong with enjoying time with your family and leisure time. But I would say we also need time to think and consider and try to assess what 2019 brought us and to think about what do we want 2020 to bring, and if so, what do we need to do differently. So we face challenges, we face choices in 2020, and we hope by Allah's grace that we will make the best choices.
Thank you, thank you. I want to send a shout out and thank you for those. There's someone that sent us greetings from Ghana. Good wealth, good health and wishes from Ghana. We thank you and appreciate that. We also have those that send us a shout out from Nashville, Tennessee, and from North Carolina. So please type in your city, and please, as we always ask, like and share this broadcast if you think it's valuable. Of course, you wouldn't be utilizing your time right now if you didn't find something valuable and useful in it. So please spread the word and let everyone know that we're on live right here, right now. Just looking at those next 2 articles that come in the paper, which are dealing with divide.
Exactly.
And that even amongst those who are in politics that are white, that are Caucasian, that there's a deep divide even amongst them. And there's something to learn from them.
Yeah.
Based on their perception on what their best interest is that they are expressing their dissatisfaction. Their perception that things are going on that don't necessarily suit them and fit them, then they want to push for their own agenda. That has to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's something to learn from that, even though in many instances they have an attitude that the only way that they can benefit is if they suppress somebody. We don't necessarily adopt that, but they definitely have within their mind that they see something that's for the benefit of their community. They're going to push that agenda.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the other side of that is that you're looking at a country that is divided. So that means there has been no decision on what is in the national interest. the president is not a figure who is uniting or striving to unite people. As a matter of fact, he's banking his political future on division in a negative way, the manipulation of people, lives, and people not being strong enough to stand up on principle. But certainly this country is facing some very serious times and some troubles, which again comes back to us and asking a question in the midst of this: what are we going to do? Are we going to just go down with a sinking ship, or are we going to be determined to be self-determined? So we got 2 articles. I'd like for you to go to finalcall.com and check out or subscribe or get the paper from the brother. One is "A Perturbed President, an Angry White Electorate, and Divided Politics Remain Hallmarks for 2020. That's one. And the other one is "Impeachment Illustrates America's Deep Division." This country is in trouble.
Yes, sir. Without a doubt. And I mean, of course, one of the things that I reflected on, and we're giving the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that his name, Farrakhan, represents a separation. And that time is continuing to move forward. We're seeing the manifestation of a great divide that is only, at the end of the day, is architect and designed by Allah himself. So look forward and making sure that we're in the right position and we're doing what we need to do as we move into 2020 and positioning ourselves and making sure we're on the right and the winning team. So praise due to Allah. Some good news with our sister Ruth, if many of you may have been aware of that, the story, and maybe you can give us a little more detail. She was actually in Mexico and not able to get back in the United States.
Well, we're glad to say that our Sister Ruth out of College Park, Georgia, the wife of Student Minister Stanley Muhammad in College Park, is back in the country. We thank Allah that she was able to make it back. She was brought here as a child by her parents. Been here all her life, over 30-something years, I guess, over 30 years at this point, because she's been about 30 years in the Nation of Islam. But we're glad that she was able to make it back. The believers had a great celebration to welcome her back. So read about it, read some good news, read about her testament to faith. And not only that, but you can read about what the Muslims did for the 7 months that she was in Mexico. So her and her husband and others worked to actually bring the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to our brothers and sisters in Mexico while she was there. So basically, there's a saying, every knock is a boost, and hard trials are necessary to establish truth. And it's a testament to faith that even under trial, there was just pushing forward and sharing of the faith. Powerful story. Read about it in this week's edition of The Final Call.
Thank you, Brother Richard. And staying on the line of a little bit dealing with things that are not only going on in America, but are going on around the world, there is the discussion of the politics, the foreign policy, what it looks like in 2020. What should we be making sure that we're taking a look at?
I mean, I think we've seen it already today, which is Tuesday, December 31st, right? We've already seen now tensions flaring up again between Iran and the United States. We've seen the United States embassy in Iraq actually be invaded as a result of some strikes by American military that killed some Iranians. America said it was in response to some other activity that killed an American military contractor. We just say more strife, more loss of friendship. Continue to watch Iran and America. Continue to watch North Korea. Continue to watch China. And continue to watch for the continued loss of American friendship. The other thing is the war in Afghanistan this year, I think, marked like its 18th year. As I said in the editorial last week, $1 trillion has been spent on that war. It's still not won. And not only that, but people that were spending the money and pushing the policy actually knew that it was an unwinnable war. So as long as America pursues these foreign policy type objectives, she can never be successful. So read the story about Brian Muhammad about some of the things that you can look forward to in the upcoming year. And again, like I say, get a good diet, man. Don't just be seduced by sports and entertainment. Get good, solid news. Get good spiritual food and information, so that you can deal holistically with the challenges and the need for information that we all have.
We were talking about getting a good diet earlier. I'm not going to go into that discussion right now, but that's a whole nother thing. You saw that look you gave me. But what we want to look at, and we want to thank all of those who are sharing, and what we're speaking on this in the paper, and I would venture to say one of the values of the Final Call newspaper is that the spirit in which it's coming out of is the fall of America. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad felt that it was very important as those who would be under the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is that we were not only aware of what happened in the past, but we were definitely aware of what was going on currently so that we would be able to see what's going on in the future. So, of course, the paper is definitely something that you should be reading, but what will allow you to even value the paper even more is the book, The Fall of America.
Absolutely.
And even as you look and see what's going on in the world, if you have that book, if you don't have that book, you need to get The Fall of America.
Yeah.
Because what you'll see is that you're able to even begin to predict what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So just
well,
wanted to...
we've got, so of course, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's article this week is The Fall of America Foretold. Separation is the answer. And it is from the book, The Fall of America. So again, when we talk about a divine man with a divine word and with supreme wisdom, if you avail yourself of it, if you just take a minute to look at it, see it for yourself, make a decision about the value of it, the rightness or the wrongness of it for yourself. Don't let other people convince you, dissuade you. So this is a great article. As they all are, this is a great article, and it dovetails right with an article about a minister. And his article this week is Separation or Death. We're at a critical point now. So I think the question when people ask, well, is separation possible? Well, I'd turn this question around. Can we take 20 more years of our current condition? Can we take 10? Can we take 10 more years of conditions where a black female college student comes home? She's got a full ride at a university out of state. She comes home planning to spend the vacation with a young black man and ends up dead. And the belief is that this young black man killed her. Can we take 10 more years of that? Can we take 10 more years of police killing our men, our women, and our children? Can we take 10 more years of being at the bottom socially? Can we take 10 more years of economic deprivation? How much? This ain't getting better. It's not getting better. It's actually getting worse. So the question of separation becomes a question of what are we willing to do to guarantee our own survival. That's where we're at. So the minister's article really lays this out beautifully in terms of what separation is. And as Sister Ava has said, the call for separation is not the end itself. The end is the total liberation, advancement, development of black people. But since we cannot do that under the people we are under, then the reality demands that we separate, along with the fact that we believe that this country is under divine chastisement from Almighty God Allah for the evil she has done, in particular to us, bringing us into slavery and assorted evil, slavery, suffering, and death over centuries, along with her slaughter and decimation of the native peoples. So those two realities compel us to say we need to be separate.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I'm looking at the comments, and someone just mentioned that it's not getting better it's getting worse by the day. And that's, some would say that that's a curse, but in many instances, unfortunately, it's a blessing. Is because we're taught that it's after dissatisfaction that change comes. So, we've been able to tolerate and deal with much of the things that are going on, and I think we're getting to a point that we just can't stand it anymore, and that puts a responsibility, just as you mentioned earlier, when you're in an abusive relationship, that comes to a point that you may have been able to tolerate it, but at a certain point, you have to get to a point that you say, I can't accept this treatment anymore, and it's only when you become thoroughly dissatisfied with the situation that you make the move that you need to make.
Or for your own self-preservation, or the preservation of your children. When it becomes very often in abusive situations, when it becomes very clear that now he is a very direct threat that if I don't act now, my life may be at risk or the life of my children. So we've been at that point in this country for a long time. Plots, plans, destruction of black organizations, the theft of black farmland, the theft of black businesses. I mean, just over and over and over and over again. You've got the brother Byron Allen. I mean, imagine this. In 2020, this man is in court saying that a major white corporation, he's all the way in the Supreme Court, talking about a major white corporation denying him the simple ability to do business, and this man is a very successful businessman. So, I mean, at a certain point, we're hearing about even in the political realm, 100,000 voters purged from the rolls in Georgia. And we'll see more of that, more of that, more of that. So again, we have to do something for ourselves, and we have to promote a future for ourselves and our children and our families and our community. No one else is going to do that. They ain't done it yet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I want to jump back a little bit because there's a few articles that are dealing with things that are going on internationally. And when we see that not only is the struggle for justice going on in the borders of the United States, but those whom America has impacted, which their tail has touched the whole planet. So we see things that are going on with neo-colonialism. We see things that are going on in India. Can you talk about some more of these international stories that are going on?
If you go to our Africa Watch column, it's a very interesting piece about currency and kind of the manipulation, in a sense, and control of currency in former French-speaking countries, right? And Central African countries controlled by France. So check that out. That's Africa Watch. In India, there have been riots, man. There have been fights. There have been battles because their leadership is taking a page out of the Trump manifesto. And he is nationalistic, and they now are pushing legislation where refugees can become citizens, except if you're Muslim. So we know that India is a majority Hindu country. So there's been fights, there's been clashes, there's been deaths. So it's a very serious situation. And kind of along the same line, Aung Suu Kyi, who is a leader in Myanmar, which used to be called Burma, Myanmar. She was lauded as a champion of democracy when she was fighting the military for reforms. Now she's part of the power structure, and she is essentially justifying a campaign of genocide against the Rohingya Muslims in Burma or Myanmar. So, again, we need to know what's going on. Then in Australia has been struck by wildfires that are burning up the country. And so there's a lot that we need to look at, and we need to always keep our eyes both of what's happening at home and what's happening abroad, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that what we saw happening abroad would soon be coming here.
Yes, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We covered a lot, in just these few moments. I'm looking to see if there's any questions. Of course, there's been comments that are made. Brother Donald said, I want a future for my children and my family. And we all know and have to look at this year that's coming is that it's a year of accountability, but it's also a year of responsibility. And that we can see what our enemy is doing and has continued to do, but we have to make sure that we take more responsibility for our own reality, for our own community. And there's a lot that we can do for ourselves. Is that the future of our families, the future of our children, we can't expect that to be in the hands of anybody else but ourselves.
No, I mean, and we're not seeing, we're not seeing it. We're not being shown signs of it. There are no signs that the country is changing. Even people that are enchanted with Donald Trump, that don't mean they love black people. Even people that hate Donald Trump doesn't mean that they love black people. Even people that are opposed to his policies doesn't mean that they want policies that will benefit us. So what we have to do now is that we have to do for ourselves, and I think the more that we do for ourselves, the more we will actually be able to extract from government. But I think it's from a position of strength as opposed to a position of weakness where you are appealing to people on moral grounds, and the people you are appealing to have no morality at all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we're not going to cover it all. We always, as we always do, we encourage you to get a subscription, because part of those who are concerned about the future of our family, our generation, our children, is that one thing you can do is support organizations, support programs, support businesses that have the best interests of your family and your community at heart. And of course, the Final Call has always been one of those institutions. The Nation of Islam has always been one of those institutions that's concerned about the well-being of our people and in our community. So support the Nation of Islam at our Savior's Day events coming in 2020 right there in Detroit, Michigan. You can visit NOI.org and click on the banner that says SD 2020. But also support the Final Call newspaper when you see the brothers with the bow ties in the community. That, and I hear sometimes when I'm out, well, I don't really read like that. Of course, we have to become readers, but even if you don't, you can give a donation. That goes a long way. And of course, you can view and keep up abreast. For those who don't read, you can get a digital edition of the Final Call newspaper, and you can have the articles read to you. So we're removing all the excuses that you may have. And of course, you can subscribe to a paper via online and just read and make sure that you're passing the word around. And of course, also in the same spirit of supporting institutions that are for your benefit, of course, for those who are in Chicago, you can come by the Foodie Spot. You can support a business that's always doing things that are in the community, whether it's feeding the homeless or where it's supporting some programs, whatever it is, you can always see that. And of course, we're at 7950 South Stony Island.
No, we're not at 7950 South Stony.
7951.
We're not 79. We're at.
Oh, I'm tripping. 7351.
7351 South Stony Island Avenue. So we tape almost every week from right here in the Foodie Spot. Great food, great people, great service, and a great black institution devoted to your interests. So a couple things. One, we got an editorial this week, Hands Off Ava Muhammad. Read about that, and you can read about the reality of the hatred spewed by those that are accusing her of hate. They got a record of hate. The school got a problem with hate. Verified. We got receipts on that. Then we're remembering our late departed editor, Abdul Wali Muhammad. This time of year, we lost him, so we think about him. We thank Allah for his life. We thank Allah for his sacrifice. We pray that Allah will not deprive us of his reward, and we hope to continue to work hard in this cause in his name.
Yes, sir.
And lastly, The Godfather of Harlem and the Corruption of Black History, a great article by Brother Dimitri Muhammad. You got to get it at finalcall.com, man. I'm telling you, you got to read this stuff. Or, as you would say, get the digital edition and let it be read to you.
Hey, so I know that we didn't cover it all, but you have the opportunity to see it all and read it in depth or have it read to you in depth by going to finalcall.com. Check us out on all the social media platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram too, right?
Yep.
We're on Instagram. You'll see a lot more content. You probably have been seeing a lot more content on social media from the Final Call. And one of the things that I'm gonna throw this one out there, be on the lookout for the Nation of Islam social media platform, inshallah, in 2020. So we utilize the tools, and some of you may wonder why we still on Facebook if the minister has been banned. And the reason why is because our people are there. And by Allah's grace and permission, we want to strive to be wherever our people are, but we're actually in the same processes that we're working to build institutions that are independent, that we have control over as well. So be on the lookout in 2020 for that. Brother Richard, is there anything else that I left out?
Final Call 40th anniversary dinner in Detroit, February 21st. Stay tuned. Go to NOI.org. But again, come on out and support. That's Friday night in Detroit, February 21st. You don't want to miss that either. So Savior's Day is going to be booming. You might want to make sure you're there and come early.
Yes, and just for those who may not have been hearing much about what's going on, I'm gonna give you a little quick sneak preview on what you should expect. Of course, on Thursday, help me out with the date, Brother Richard.
Thursday would be the 20th, correct?
Of course, I had it up and it just dropped, but we have
Labor's meeting.
Well, no. The public stuff. So on Thursday, we have elevated
20th,
places.
February 20th.
Yes, sir. And that's Thursday, elevated places for those. And it was mentioned earlier, Student Minister Ava Muhammad will be doing her Blog Talk radio show live at Savior's Day Thursday evening. And then we go to Friday the 21st, February 21st. There will be workshops, and this is something a little different. The workshops will only be on Friday, so you want to make sure that you get in town for that. And many of us expect the workshops to be on Friday and Saturday, so we kind of forego the workshops on Friday and think we're just going to see them on Saturday. That's not the case this year, so you want to make sure that you are able to attend. And the minister personally requested that all of the workshops deal with the Muslim program that you can find right there inside of the Final Call newspaper. What the Muslim wants, the Muslim program, what the Muslims want, and what the Muslims believe, that all of the workshops should be coming from that, and it should probably be connected to this case that we're presenting and pushing for separation. We're going to deal with those things that we as a community can take action on. So you want to make sure that you're there for that. And of course, a family that prays together, they say stays together. So we'll also be having Juma prayer on the 21st, Allah willing, and that special 40th year celebration of the Final Call newspaper, that dinner. It's also going to be a fundraiser by Allah's permission. You want to make sure that you're keeping in the loop, because it's going to be limited space, and we expect that to be sold out. So if you don't find out about it early, you may be one of those people just trying to peep in and see what's going on.
We're going to make room in the end, but get on in there, we would say. And
then, of course, we're going to go on the 22nd, along with other activities, the drill competition. And for those who are on the cusp or right there on that line of becoming registered citizens of the Nation of Islam, you want to go ahead and do that, because we have been doing over the last few years a very special event that's really usually for those who are registered citizens of the nation, where we have this large graduation. And you get to come in from people from all across the country and be presented in front of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and be amongst your new and expanded family. So you don't want to miss that. And then, of course, Saturday, that's all. The graduation is on Saturday, but we also have, as was mentioned earlier, a town hall meeting. Should black people consider separation? And that's not just talking about those who we call African Americans, but also our indigenous people. That you want to make sure that you don't miss that, and invite all your family and friends to that. And then on Sunday, February 23rd, you don't want to miss the capstone of Black History Month, where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan will deliver a earth-shaking, powerful message. If you can be there, you should be there, and don't be by yourself. So, that's all that I have. Is there anything else you want to close out on?
Finalcall.com. Go there.
Until next time, behind the Final Call cover story. Assalamu alaikum.